Alexandra Abraham. I'm a painter and a jewellery designer, and I live and work in North London. I have a big studio in North London which is just full of all my treasures that I work with. In the way I work, everything comes from the materials. That's a starting point. I look at my materials first, and my pebbles, my bits of glass, my bits of china, and decide what I'm going to do with them. And I have them all in my studio on a very big table, spread out, but separated into colour and into type. And that is my palette. When I'm working, I move around the table like I'm moving around a giant palette. So I make jewellery and I make tableware, and I also make paintings. At the moment, I'm focusing on jewellery because that's where there's a lot of interest, both from me and from, I suppose, the world. Early last year, I had an email from Janine telling me she was setting up a website selling work by artists working in a sustainable way using recycled materials. And it was such an enthusiastic email, I felt completely drawn towards her. So I responded straight away, and I thought, yes, I want to work with this woman. She sounds like my kind of person. So that's how it started. And we began also an email correspondence, which has developed into a friendship, which for me has been very interesting and exciting at my age to actually make a new friend like this in this way, in a professional way as well as a personal way. Our values are very similar, and she loves my work. She really has fallen in love with it and has put everything behind it, and it's meant a lot to me as an artist working on my own in a studio, which is very lonely, I have to say, a lot of the time, to have the outside world coming in and being interested. I think I've always been a collector and a hoarder all my life. Since I was very small, I've collected buttons. I've saved things from that were given to me by my parents or my grandparents. And I've had them in my studio for a long time, sitting there. And it's very important for me now to actually use them and use them in a new and interesting way, to get them off the shelf, to look at them and think, how could I use that? And the other thing, living in England, living in London is just full of old stuff. It's everywhere. I mean, most of my materials, many of them come from the Thames foreshore, which is just full of china, clay pipe stems like this, glass, beautiful iridescent glass, which is all river washed and fantastic and patinated. And when you put all these together with the buttons and with the coins and the shells, something other happens. They become something else completely. They're not just a collection of disparate objects. They mesh together and become something new and different. And to recycle pieces like that, so they become treasures, that an individual piece can become a whole treasure, is wonderful to me. It's magic. For instance, this is Elizabethan slipware. To the edge of the plate, you can see where whoever's made the plate has made an indentation around the edge, and that's still there, the mark of the hand. The plate would have been probably this big, and it was an everyday kind of Elizabethan plate. And it's a slipware. So I just think it's fantastic that to find something that's so old, still viable, and that I can use in my work and bring back to life again. This is a piece that was from my brother, found in a field in Leicestershire, and it's quite a big piece of it. You can see how the pattern is made by drawing. It's usually a comb through the two layers of slit, so you get this pattern. They were made in a mould. You can see it's kind of got a curve to it, and they're usually made by very unskilled people, and they were everyday cheap plates people would actually, put their bread on or their meat on. So I just love the fact that it's just incredibly old. The other things that are from the Thames, which are great, are pieces of glass like this, which is quite iridescent and jewel-like, and I think it's probably 16th century, but I can never be sure. But again, wonderfully old and very beautiful, and the bottoms are of glass like this. And when I look at it in my studio, I bring things together. And for instance, this piece on this brooch here, this came from the Thames. This piece of beautiful purple patterned china, and I put it together. I look at the pieces. I started with the china from this brooch, with the china, thinking what would work with it. Went around my big table and picked the right bits, and it's an organic process of fitting pieces next to it. The coloured pieces that I use, these very small jewel-like pieces, they come from Venice. Their name is smalti, and they've been used for centuries in making mosaics, Roman mosaics from that period onwards, really. The family in Venice that makes this particular smalti has been going for hundreds of years, and they've been in the same place in Venice making their smalti by hand. and I import it directly from. It's the only new material that I use, but I like it because you can get these hits of pure colour that really offset against pieces of old china like that. That's from the Thames as well on this brooch, on this bangle rather. The materials find me indefinitely, and they come to my studio, and then they come out through the end of my hands in a new way. And what I love is it's always a surprise. I like working with a surprise because I never know with my work how it's going to turn out, what it's going to really look like, because when I make it, the whole piece is enveloped in gold or black. I mean, when they first start off, the bangles are very simple wooden bangles, turned bangles. So there's a collection of items all the way around it. And then it's a build-up and a build-up until I scrape it back and clean everything off and see. It's like having a baby. You don't know what it's going to be like. So, oh, it's a surprise. It's wonderful. I love working like this. I can't imagine working in any other way. And it's a privilege to be able to make things that people actually want to wear. It's fantastic for me. I think because Janine is focusing on really high-end product, it doesn't have to look worthy. It can look, well, it looks beautiful and glamorous, and she has a wonderful collection of other artists on the site, and there's not hardly a shred of macrame or worthiness about it. It's just high-end glamour, and it's almost a secondary that it's recycled or reclaimed or sustainable. The first thing is it's beautiful and fabulous and I want it, and then you think, oh, interesting, it's recycled, it's sustainable, that's a bonus, I like that. So I think that's how I as an artist perceive it, and I think that's how the public perceives her site as well, very much so. Glamour, beautifulness, desirability, and then the second thing is, yes, it's sustainable. For me as an artist, there's a connection when I'm in the studio and all there is me and this, and the outside world, everything. It's just me and what I'm making, and that is what every artist wants to have. It's this wonderful connection with what you're doing, and that makes the work true and valuable, and not valuable in a money term, but valuable in just as a manifestation of how I am as an artist and of me. It's very pure.